Hey, everybody, welcome to Disrupt Your Now with Lisa Kipps-Brown, me. And tonight, I've got my second Hokie on the show. I think you're just the second, Brian. Before I had Wes Harper, who was on Naked and Afraid. Tonight, my guest is Bryan Daniels, who, as I said, is a Hokie. He started out in a Fortune 500 company. Now he owns a really cool craft granola bar company, except I'm going to let you tell them later about kind of how you're winging out from granola bars, but really, really cool craft granola bars based on using the spent grains from craft beer that he loves so much. So, Bryan, I want you to tell us about your background, how you got to where you are, because I know you started in an Inc. 500 company.
Yes, for sure. So my background is in information technology. So that's what I went to school for. As you said, fellow Hokie, graduated from Virginia Tech in 2002. And so I worked for a healthcare company, Anthem. I started out with the Mayor Group. They became WellPoint. They became Anthem. You know, that whole
Yeah.
smaller fish, big fish story. But anyway, ended up with Anthem, and it was, a good job. Was there for 15 plus years, doing data analysis, a few years as a manager, kind of the go-to guy for a lot of different departments that I was in there. And while I wasn't unhappy there, I wasn't happy either. So I kind of always had this itch that I wanted to get out and do something for myself, where if the company valued me and was willing to pay me this, then I must be worth at least that much to myself. I just got to figure out how to make that happen. So yeah, I started kind of planning my escape, saved up some money. I got certified as a personal trainer because I've been a soccer coach for 20 years going on now, and I figured I could use that background to start a coaching business or personal training, and then I also have been a DJ since my days at Virginia Tech. So I started planning my mobile DJ business, and those were the things I was going to do when I left the company. And so I left in April 2019.
That's so interesting. So I wondered if you already were interested in becoming an entrepreneur. Were either one of your parents business owners?
Nope. My dad worked for the Ford plant. So on the assembly line working for Ford, and my mom was a bank teller and eventually manager. But they, worked 9 to 5 jobs pretty much for my whole life, and that's what I saw.
So you just on your own got the entrepreneurial itch.
Yeah, I guess so. Even like I said, when I was working for Anthem, I was still coaching on the side. I was coaching for a local high school. I was coaching for different clubs, and then I was DJing weddings and gigs and clubs and things like that on the side on the weekends, where it was like I always had my hands in something else and doing things for myself on the side. Where I guess I never thought about it back then, but it's what I naturally wanted to do. I always wanted to try to build something of my own.
So you started though the coaching, and are you still doing that at all? The coaching and DJ?
It's Granola's taking up all my time. So yeah, nope.
So you went from coaching and DJing to creating granola bars. But there's that fitness tie. I read on your website, I'm like, oh yeah, there is that tie. But other than that, it's like, woo, these are totally different. So tell us about that, how you ended up doing that.
Sure. So I was home brewing beer as a hobby, making different styles of beer with my friends. On the weekends or late weeknights, we get in there and make a batch or whatever. And it was just something to do. And free beer, not free beer, but our beer essentially.
Yeah.
So it was just fun. And that's what we did for a while. And throughout that process, you always end up throwing the spent grain away. And for me, that was one of my most favorite parts of the process, was smelling the grains kind of steeping and all of the sugars and stuff getting extracted from that grain. The whole process just smelled so good. And in my mind, I'm like, there's got to be a way to recycle this stuff to be able to use it and eat it, because it smells like baking bread essentially. Kind of.
Oh, okay. See, well, I've been to craft breweries, but I never know what I'm smelling. So
right, yeah. So yeah, if you ever smell like a bready smell going on there, it usually means they're making something that day.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so we were throwing it away basically every time we were done with it and kind of moving on. But it got to the point where I was like, I'll just take a bag of this stuff home. And so I took the spent grain home and tried to figure out, what to do with it next. And I dried it out, which I figured out was the first step. And then I made a batch of granola bars from it, based on a recipe that I saw, and it came out horribly. So not really edible at all. But I didn't give up. So the next time around, they made a batch, and I did the same thing and tweaked a few things, and finally made something that was decent and edible. So this was when I was still working at Anthem. So I would take the granola bars into my job there and had a little jar on my desk, and people would come by and grab a granola bar and leave me $1 or $2, and that's kind of where it started, and I found that people actually liked them. So
I love that. But before you started making the granola bars, I think I read on your website, you researched other products, right? That
yes,
you researched things that could be done with it, and then you settled on the granola bars, I guess, because it's tied to your health, your fitness passion, but also, I guess, kind of low cost way to dip your toe into something.
yeah, no, it's actually kind of all of it. It one of those things that worked out kind of perfectly for me because, like I said, that's the same time I was getting certified as a personal trainer, and obviously I'd been coaching, and these bars were like my on the go fuel. So in
Yeah.
between my 9 to 5 job and going to coach, I would eat one of the bars, and then or even after I left that job, on the way to train somebody, I was eating a bar, or on the way to a gig. Like that was my fuel. So when it came time to decide what I was going to make, I knew that I could make flour and turn it into bread. And there were people making dog treats. But again, those weren't really things that I was going to use personally. But I knew that granola bars are something I could make, for one, and two, that I would use personally. So if all else fails and nobody likes them, at least I have something for myself.
Yeah,
So
that's right. You can eat them.
that's,
And
yeah,
see, I would have just sat there and ate all of them. So probably none of my customers would have gotten any.
it's
That was
tempting.
funny. But so you started doing that, you started making them, they started buying them, and then you realized that you had a product. So did you decide that you were going to start a company and then start going to places to try to sell them? Or did you just kind of wing it for a while?
I'd say that it came to a point, kind of, I won't say overnight, but pretty quickly, where it became a business, because like I said, I was doing it with my own grain and I was selling it to coworkers, and then that was around the time when I actually left that job. So
Uh-huh.
I didn't really have any coworkers to sell the bars to, but I
Oh,
was still
yeah.
giving
Oh,
them to
that's
friends and
right.
family.
Okay.
But what happened was, some of those old coworkers were calling me saying, "Can I order some more bars? Like I know you don't work here anymore, but I still got to have my fix." So I was still making them, and around that same time, me and my buddies kind of stopped making as much beer as we used to, because all of us have 2 kids. Kind of
Yeah.
things got in the way in time, but we really weren't making as much. So all that to say, I needed more grain to keep up with the orders that I was getting. So I went to a local brewery, and the guy was working behind the bar, and I was talking to him, kind of telling him what I was doing, and asked him if he had any grains. And he's like, "Yeah, I actually just made some beer today. You can have this." And he came back around the corner with a big bucket of spent grain. And it was more grain in that bucket than I had ever used for any of my own projects or
I
whatever. And
wondered. Yeah.
so it
So
was like that day I was like, okay, well, I guess this is going to be my business. And that same week, got the business license and set up for the farmers markets and all the different approvals I had to get from the Department of Agriculture and everything set up. Like, got all that underway within a week of talking to that brewer.
that is so cool. So, and now you get grain from multiple breweries, correct?
Correct.
So
Yep.
I think it's just such a great way for businesses to collaborate and help each other. People don't think about it, that there are ways that you can work together with other businesses. You just have to be creative about it. Now, do y'all do any co-marketing?
Yes. So what I've tried to do is, easily, at least every month or every other month, I'll create a specialty bar. So depending on what beer releases the brewery has coming up, I'll try to make something that coincides with that. or if they have an event going on, try to make something for that particular event, or at least just make a recipe that accentuates or highlights a particular brewery that month. So for example, with Smart Mouth Brewing, they have their marshmallow IPA. So it's basically, it has Lucky Charms
Oh
cereal.
my
It's brewed with Lucky Charms cereal.
God.
And they have lines out the door every year for their release. And so the last couple of years, I've been there with my granola bars, and I make a special one with marshmallows in it, Lucky Charms marshmallows,
Oh,
as kind
cool.
of a giveaway for all the people that are waiting in line or whatever. So
I love
uh,
Lucky Charms. Now, when do they do that? What time of year?
it's March.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
So
Oh,
coming
that's
up
right.
coming up soon.
Yeah. Oh, that is so cool, though. I love that y'all are doing that together. So you have multiple, but you're working with multiple breweries, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. So Deadline Brewing, Wasser's Home Brewing in Virginia Beach, Smart Mouth are three that we work with pretty regularly. But we've also done things with Big Ugly Brewing in Chesapeake, Benchtop in Norfolk, Makers Craft Brewery. I mean, the list is really kind of getting to the point where I have to start thinking about it because it's
Yeah.
approaching like a dozen breweries that we've worked with or done events at and things like that. So
Well, I'm going to say right now, if there's anybody who works at a brewery or owns one who's listening, or the breweries that you're currently working with, they ought to white label. They ought to get you to make like their own bar that's your recipe and they sell, and like maybe it's only at their place or whatever,
yeah,
and then that's promoting their grain is in that bar.
yep, yeah, I'm 100% on board with that idea.
Do you have a distributor?
No, so everything is one man show. My wife is a huge help to me and does a lot of the packaging and labeling stuff for me, and my kids help label things, stuff like that. But she's got her own full-time job, so it's basically kind of me in my home kitchen, getting everything together, the marketing, the selling, the making, all that good stuff. But it's a labor of love for sure. And
And yeah, and you're not at a point that you could even use a distributor yet, because the worst thing that can happen is if you grow too fast. I actually
right,
have a friend who owns a pimento cheese company, and they started in their kitchen. So
gotcha.
if you ever want to talk with, you may already know people in the food industry, but if you don't, I can introduce you to her if you want to meet somebody who did start in their own kitchen. And they're still small. They still do most of their sales.
Hmm.
She's in South Hill, but she'll go to Richmond and Raleigh and places like that. But I think they have some distributors now too as well.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, no, I'm always open to talk to new people, and like every conversation I have, I get some little kernel of something that's useful. I
Mhm.
mean, if not something huge. So yeah, I'm always open.
There's a really cool shop in South Hill also, which is right off of I-85, the town of
Hmm.
South Hill. I think it's called Maker's Market.
Okay.
Um, Unless they've changed the name. And that whole store is Virginia products. It started
Gotcha.
out, it was going to be just the region that they're in, but they've added on Virginia products. So that would be a good place for you to be in, because the way that they're right off of 85,
Right.
it could
Yeah.
give you exposure to people who are traveling through in the interstate and just come into town to eat,
For sure.
and get some interesting food. So I can send you the information about that.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great.
So what would you say is like the biggest hurdle that you've had to overcome?
I think for me personally is just understanding my strengths and weaknesses
Yeah.
and how to know when to ask for help in certain areas.
Yeah.
And so that's probably not the easiest thing for me personally. I'm trying to come to terms with that basically, where, I like having control of as much as I possibly can, but at the same time, I know that I'm not, the most organized person. Like, I know that, I have, I'm more of a big picture person than details a lot of times, unless it's something that I'm 100% into, and then I'm all into the minutia of it. So,
Yeah.
but just kind of knowing when to let go of certain things and what to delegate is probably the biggest challenge for me. And then Other than that, I think just understanding business and how just the taxes and licenses and all the little pieces that go into actually being able to sell things legally essentially. So
Especially food products,
right.
because there are all the other regulations that people like me don't have to worry about.
Yep.
You sound like you're exactly like me. I'm really bad at delegating, but I also love big picture. But I'm great at details, but once I get into the details, I can't get back out.
Right.
So it's like I really need to stay up here, or else I'm going to get down in the weeds, and I just get totally obsessed. And
Yep.
so it sounds like we're a lot alike.
Yeah.
With
Think so.
that's a common hurdle for entrepreneurs though, because we start our own thing and we're doing it and it's hard to let go of control to others. So even if you're not like that anyway, even if you're not like a control person or whatever anyway, it's just hard to let go because you worry about the quality and everything.
Right.
So all right, so excuse me. Tell us about some of the flavors that you have. I know you do the special flavors, but what are the ones that you keep in all the time?
Sure. So I got a few here with me. I've
Yay!
got so we got blueberry.
Okay.
There we go. It's blueberry hefeweizen. So it has blueberries, sunflower seeds. It uses gluten-free oats. I don't have it as certified gluten-free because you have to get tested for all that good stuff,
Yeah.
which is a few $10,000 or so. But essentially, I give this to people who tell me they have either celiac issues or they want something gluten reduced. And so far, so good. Everybody's kind of giving me good reviews about that one. And then it's the kind of the one flavor that I think everybody from 90-year-olds down to 9 months old all like the blueberry the most. So it's
It
probably my most
sounds
popular flavor.
delicious.
Yeah, yeah. So then we have chocolate cherry stout.
Mhm.
So the chocolate cherry stout is one that I created by adding walnuts to the basic almond base of the other flavors because I wanted to have a heartier bar. So for people like me who are beer nerds, a stout beer is going to be a little thicker than a normal beer, a little heartier than most beer. So added the walnuts to this one along with some cocoa powder and cherries to make the chocolate cherry stout.
Mm.
Then we have coconut mango. So this is the coconut mango tropical IPA.
That
And this
sounds like a
one,
summer, like laying on the beach,
yeah,
drinking beer.
exactly. So yep, it's all that I just described there. Coconut mango, some almonds in there. It uses coconut oil instead of butter. So anybody that's anti-dairy or lactose issues or is vegetarian will normally grab the coconut mango, the tropical one.
Cool.
And then Pumpkin Spice Oktoberfest. This was supposed to be a seasonal bar that I created or a specialty one that kind of caught on, and I haven't been able to get rid of it. So,
Because everybody likes it so much.
yeah, it became one of my favorites too. So the pumpkin spice and the blueberry are probably my two favorite. But yeah, the pumpkin spice was one where I made it as a specialty bar, and some people that's all they ever get. So, and that one it has no nuts in it, just seeds. So people that have nut allergies will generally get that one. So we try to make different combinations for different people that can suit some different needs. We have one more. I don't have it up here. I thought I had it with me, but it's the cranberry almond IPA. So the cranberry almond IPA is the flavor that started it all. It's the
Oh,
original
okay.
recipe. It's the one that I sold to my coworkers 3 years ago and kind of got the business rolling. So, so yeah, that's kind of the base recipe that everything else kind of was born from.
So which one did you say is your favorite?
The blueberry and the pumpkin spice are my two personal favorites.
Okay. And the blueberry, and people love both, but the blueberry, if you had to do a tiebreaker, it would be the blueberry slightly more favorite.
Yeah, I think the two most popular flavors are the blueberry and then the coconut mango.
Yeah. I'm hungry now. I need something to eat. All right, so tell me, were you into cooking before you started this? Like, did you like messing around with recipes? It's not something you just were in the kitchen fooling around with all the time anyway.
Nope, not at all. I think the jumping into the beer thing,
Yeah.
um, the beer brewing was kind of that was as far as I took cooking. Let me put it that way. Like that was my foray into recipe formulation and cooking, was making different beer styles. So
Oh,
I took that into when I was making the bars. You know, I used some of the things I learned there to kind of formulate the different granola bar recipes. But my wife can attest to the fact that I don't cook anything else that isn't just reheatable or throw into the
oh,
oven.
that's hilarious.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
I want to ask you because I'm not in the food business at all, but some people who are listening might be. So you're cooking them at home, right? Is that right?
Yes,
And so you have to get like special inspections by the state of Virginia and certified and that kind of thing to be able to cook and sell from your kitchen.
correct. Yes. So the Virginia Department of Agriculture is the body that's in charge of home kitchens. So they had to come out and inspect my place, make sure that I have everything organized properly and space set aside for all my materials. And yeah, I had to pretty much get everything cleared with them before I could produce my product. So I have to go through them to get my recipes approved and all that good stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, it's
Are, are you required to put the nutritional information on the packaging?
Yeah, good question. It's not required until I reach a certain amount of units per
Okay.
year sold. So I think I have to reach 10,000 bars of a certain flavor sold.
Mhm.
So I haven't quite gotten there yet, but you know, I think that's kind of the next goal. And we're actually looking at kind of some new packaging now that will have that included on there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and so when you do that, I guess you have to go. Do you just calculate it yourself, or do you have to go to somebody official and like make sure that what you say it is correct?
Yep. So I have calculated it on my own. So I've used kind of the programs you just plug in the recipes and
Hmm.
it'll spit back out the information. But I believe once I get to the point where I'm adding SKUs onto my packaging and putting the nutrition facts on there, it will have to be done officially, so to speak.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and hopefully, you know, my goal is to use any connections I have with the Virginia Tech Hokies out there. So I know that that's one of the things they do is they certify gluten free. They do all the other things. So if anybody has any connections there, I'm happy to speak.
Oh, yeah, that's a great idea. Reach out to those Hokies.
Hmm.
Um, so we talked about the kitchen, we talked about the regulations and you don't have any that are open, do you? That are in none of those bags are open, are they?
No, but I can.
Well, I just wanted to see what does it look like a typical granola bar? You
Oh
know,
yeah,
like
and actually you can
plastic
flip it. You
shape?
can flip it over on the back and see too.
Oh, okay. So how many are in a package?
So there's one bar per package, and this is actually the cranberry almond IPA one that I was talking about earlier. Um,
Okay.
So yeah, one bar per package, and we sell them in packs of 3, 6, or 12.
Oh, okay. So if I order, so I wouldn't order one bar, I would order something that comes with three in it,
Yep. See
right?
exactly.
And then
You'd order a 3 pack, 6 pack, or a 12 pack, and then we have a multi pack where you can get a 12 pack, which is a mixture of all 5 different flavors.
that's what I need to order so that I
Mm-hmm.
can try out all of them. They all sound so good.
Thank you.
One thing that I talk a lot about with my clients is, and people who are watching the show is if they're looking for something new to do, I always tell them, look at your interests and see if there's a way that you can do something related to your interests, but you don't have to do that. So like with you, it would be, okay, they love beer, they love going to breweries and stuff, but it costs a lot of money to start a brewery. But this is a great example of that you kind of accidentally figured out a product that you could make out of the waste basically from the beer. And I think it's a great example for other people to put on your thinking cap and use your imagination.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's one of the things that me and my friends were talking about when we were making the beer was like, oh, how cool would it be to have a brewery and let's do this and that. And actually, I talked to some people in the industry, that know kind of how it goes, and they didn't discourage me from doing it, but they kind of brought reality to me and basically, told me what it would take to get it done. And, those things just weren't realistic for us at that point. And the fact that making beer as a hobby is fun, but as a job is like 80% cleaning. So it's like,
Yeah.
you can do that if you want to, but, I'd rather do something adjacent to it where I get to go to the breweries. I get to sometimes try beers before they come out, before the general public gets to try them, or I get to collaborate on a unique flavor or something like that. So I get to have some of the perks of hanging with the beer folks, but I don't have to stick around and do all the mopping.
Yeah, that's great. And to be able to be involved in all those things kind of behind the scenes. It's like when we lived in Florida for a while, my husband and I owned a new boat dealership and a yacht brokerage. And it's like you end up working when nobody else is because that's when everybody else can buy. So we're like, well, this sucks. I mean, it was a good business, but it didn't fit the way we wanted to live our life, which that's one of the things that I help people out with, because a lot of people don't think about all they think about is how much they're going to make. They don't think about all the little daily, the lifestyle things. But so when he left there, he went to work for a company in the marine industry. It was a boat trailer manufacturer. So he was in sales. So we got to visit he had Georgia and Florida where was his territory. So we got to go everywhere from, North Georgia to the Keys for free. And, had to go, well, didn't have to, but a lot of times went when they were having fishing tournaments, but we didn't have to work them. He just sponsored them and we showed up and, he talked to people and then we went and drank and ate and, had a good old time. So that's kind of like with you. You're not having to do the drug grub work.
Right. No, yeah, you gotta strike a balance somewhere.
Yeah. So all of the breweries that you're working with currently are still over in that area?
Yeah, correct. So I'm working with, like I said, about a dozen from Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Chesapeake, Hampton, Newport News, occasionally. So, yep, all in the South Side Hampton Roads area. Trying to expand to hopefully Williamsburg, Richmond here soon. So.
Okay, so any breweries out there listening, if you're in that area of Virginia,
yes, please.
catch up with Bryan and see if he might be able to use your grains.
Oh, I can use them.
Yeah. Do you do anything with other entrepreneurs? Do you do any networking or or have a mastermind group or anything like that to help you with the entrepreneurial side of stuff? The reason I ask is it can be so lonely to be an entrepreneur because people who aren't don't get it.
Right. Yeah. No, I have been fortunate that I've been involved in a few groups actually that meet regularly and have events and do online meetings and things like that. So we're constantly engaged and meeting people and, like you said, people that have that shared experience of trying to run a business. And some are in totally different fields, but can relate on a lot of different levels. So that's been, like I said, one of the biggest takeaways from this whole entrepreneurial experience for me is just gaining knowledge from multiple sources, just different people, different walks of life, and those groups have been a huge part of that. So yeah, always happy to kind of jump into those groups as they come along and do the happy hour thing, and it's been good.
Yeah. That's perfect because so many people, especially now with COVID, but so many small business owners, it's easy to become isolated, because you're working, working, working. And even if everything's going great, it just is nice to be around people who get it, who've been where you are or are currently going through it. And even if you're not talking about business, it's just nice to know people and be around people who do have that shared experience.
Exactly.
Yeah. So do you work, are any of the breweries owned by Hokies?
Yes, at Wasserhoon in Virginia Beach.
Okay.
So Aaron and Christine Holly, they are both Hokies. I think they both went to Kellum High School too, and I went to Kellum as well. So One of the things when I first went to that brewery, in the little bio of the menu, it states that they went to Kellum High School in Virginia Tech, and I'm like, hey, that's basically my whole life path, so they must be cool.
Yeah,
So
that's
he
right.
actually was, yeah, he was there that day, and I talked to him, and he's been one of my biggest supporters ever since. So yeah, it's definitely one case of hope he's looking out for each other, and so far it's the only one I found for sure. But I'm sure there's somewhere out there that I just haven't
Yeah.
crossed, been able to make that connection yet.
Yep, for sure. And that brings up another great point about being a business owner is so many people feel like they have to be like, this is the business and kind of make it not about them. But that brings out the great point that you need to get your story in there. You need to be part of it because you are the founder and it makes it more personal and it gives you connection with people. Like in your case, you're like, you've been going to different breweries and you like them, you're like, oh, we have this in common. So whether it's the school or interest or whatever, the way people dress or anything, when people feel like they can relate to you, they're more likely to want to do business with you.
Yeah, for sure. And you never know what those connections might be if you're not kind of going out there and putting yourself out there and meeting these people and trying to make
Yeah.
those connections.
Yeah, the biggest opportunity, I mean, people that I know, some of the most amazing opportunities that I've seen literally just came accidentally.
Yep.
I have a friend who's out in California now on photography for the rock and roll camp.
Mm.
And it's so amazing. And she just met he's going to be on my show in a few weeks, but she met him. He was on her podcast, and then they ended up working together. So you never know who might taste your bars or want them and be like, this is, I want these in my store or whatever. It's a chain. Tell us about the other products because I know you have other snacks.
Yeah. So, well, actually, these are what we have are just the granola bars at this point, but we do have kind of a plan.
Oh,
Well, we'll see. It's kind of one of those things where I want to make sure that the bars do what I need them to do first,
yeah.
but I do want to have like a breakfast cereal. So with the same kind of recipes, but potentially by oven baking them and then drying out, turning into something that could be served as a cereal. But that's kind of maybe a year down the road.
That's smart though. I thought I'd read somewhere that you have puffs and something else, but that's so smart, Brian, because growing too fast is can be actually worse slash more dangerous than not growing fast enough. Um,
Yep.
People get into, and that's why a lot of small businesses, if they get a contract with a big retailer like Walmart or whoever, they find them all of a sudden they realize that they're using all their resources just to serve that big customer,
Yep.
and the whole don't have your eggs all in one basket. But so I think that's a great decision that you made to hold off on those other things until you really have the granola bars established.
Yeah, that's the plan for now. Like I said, I think and I've always wanted to keep an open mind about what the future could be, but at the same time, slow steady growth. Kind of,
Mhm.
I know where I am, and I know that if like I said, I were to get in order for this many pallets, I'd be in my kitchen from dusk till dawn for like 3 months straight. So everything is kind of calculated at this point.
Yeah. I actually have a friend that has a beverage company. It's fitness and it's a functional beverage.
Mm.
And he already was in Walmart and Costco, and he just announced that he just got him Winn-Dixie. So he's not in Virginia, though. He's in Florida. And I don't know how much y'all might have in common as far as the industries, but I can introduce y'all. It's somebody else to know that is fighting the good fight.
Right. Yes, please. Happy to.
Yeah. Um, so okay, what do you think has been your biggest mistake? The thing that you just well, you probably learned the most from it, but yeah, your biggest mistake that you've made so far in this business.
Oh man, has been so many. Um,
So not one that really, really stands out to you.
Uh, yeah, and I think it might be because I try to have a short memory about a lot of it
Hmm.
because I know that what I'm trying to build is not easy and not
Yeah,
quick. Like I know that Kind Bar and Cliff Bar and Laura, but whatever,
yeah,
they started somewhere and it took them years to get to one another point and then years to get to another point before we even heard of them. So
yeah,
I try to just put it in the perspective of how many mistakes did they make too. Like I'm sure it wasn't all smooth sailing for any of these people. It's just if you believe in your product and what you're doing is coming from a good place, as long as I just keep moving forward, then I'll be okay. So yeah, like no major mistakes that I've dwelled on. I think
mhm.
probably the one that kind of stung a little bit was not getting being able to copyright my name, All Good Granola Bars, because there's another food company called All Good something or other. But
Yeah.
so yeah, I kind of wasted about $400 there and a lot of time. But other than that,
Were
everything
you
else
able to
was
get a trademark for the logo?
yeah.
Or
So that's going to be the next thing. But I'm probably going to take a different approach now and potentially hire some help instead of kind of going it alone. But those are some of the major lessons I've learned. Again, being able to delegate and say, ask for help from the experts when I need to.
yeah. I love though, it's great. We need to learn from our mistakes. So remember what we need to and learn from it, but don't dwell on it. So that's a really good point that you brought out. If you need to remember it, you remember it, but you don't just beat yourself up constantly for everything that you do wrong, because otherwise that's all you'd be doing. Because everybody, no matter how long we've been in business, people make mistakes.
Right.
Yeah. So I've had you on here for almost 45 minutes. So I don't want to hold you too long, but I want to ask you how people give them information about how to connect with you, how they can buy from you, but also if there's somebody out there who's interested in doing business with you, whether it's a brewery that might have grain or a distributor or a store, anybody.
Yes, great. So the first thing is allgoodgranolabars.com is our main website where you can purchase the bars, find out information about where you can find them currently, find out more information about me, uh, more in-depth reviews about the flavors and some customer reviews, things like that. So allgoodgranolabars.com is always a good place to start. You can email me at allgoodbars@gmail.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. Bryan Daniels is my name, and on Instagram, it's all good granola. So check us out on Instagram at all good granola. Give us a follow. Shoot us a direct message. I'm happy to answer any questions people have. A lot of times, people ask me questions like, do the bars have beer in them? Do they taste like beer? Can my kids have them? There's
Yeah.
all kind of questions that people have, and I'm happy to answer. And
Uh-huh.
I can assure you that it's all good. I call them all
Yeah.
good for a reason. So.
Do you have those questions on your site, a frequently asked questions page?
I don't. I do not have one actually, and that's a great idea.
Add it.
Yeah. So
Because by adding it, it'll also help with your search engine optimization. Because if people are on there Googling, does granola made with whatever taste like beer, they might not even know about you, but they might end up on your page.
yeah, no. What's funny was as soon as you said that, my mind went straight to SEO, and I was like, oh, well, why didn't I have done that the whole time? So
Yeah.
yeah, that's perfect.
And you and I met on LinkedIn. I was trying to remember before we came on the show. I was like, how did we meet? I know it was just like the past week or so and we met on LinkedIn, but I can't remember if we just both commented on somebody else's post or if I saw a post about your company. I don't remember which.
Right. I think you messaged me a couple weeks ago, but I don't know what the root of that, what it
Yeah.
was. But it might have been. I did an article recently for Virginia Tech Magazine, an online magazine from Virginia Tech, and I don't know if you might have came across that article. I think I posted that
That's
in
probably
somewhere.
what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I
and
know.
that's yeah, I think that might have been what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. On After we get off here, stick around for a minute because I want to tell you I have an idea for
Oh yes, please.
somebody that you could collaborate with. So I
There you
want you
go.
to hang around for a minute. But
Can do.
everybody out there, thank you so much for joining us. If you are watching or listening later after the live show, I do the show every Tuesday evening at 7 o'clock p.m. I stream live on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So catch me live whenever you can. The videos stay up, and I'm also currently making the videos into a traditional podcast as well. So that'll be coming out for people who, can't watch the video. Bryan, thank you so much for joining me today. I can't wait to order your bars and taste them.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm looking forward for you trying them out, and I'll be sure to slip a couple extra ones in your package for you.
Oh, that's sweet. Oh, and go Hokies, right?
Yes.
See y'all next week, everybody. Bye. Thanks, Bryan.